This happened just a few days ago. I returned to my family's ranch in Texas after my father's unexpected passing. I hadn't lived here in years. I thought I'd left it all behind. Now I was back to help with the place. Honestly, I was feeling uneasy. The ranch had seen better days. Dust covered everything. Old machinery lay rusting in the fields like forgotten ghosts. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I wandered around at night, trying to ignore the creeping feeling in my gut. On my first night, I went up to the attic. I wanted to look for old supplies. Instead, I found a journal. The pages were yellowed and brittle. As I flipped through it, I saw entries about my father's recovery from financial ruin 8 years ago. He mentioned a deal, something he never spoke about when I was growing up. It felt strange. I brushed it off as a weird coincidence. But things got weirder. I started hearing whispers in the wind. It called my name low and cold. I thought it was my imagination. Then I saw shadows moving outside the barn. Maybe I just needed to get a grip. I focused on the ranch, hoping to ignore whatever darkness seeped into the air. I noticed the livestock seemed off. My father's old horse, Buck, wouldn't come near me. He stood in the corner of the pen, staring blankly into the distance. I felt a pit in my stomach. I wanted to ask the neighbors for help, but something stopped me. The townsfolk avoided me, flinching when I mentioned my father's name. It was unsettling. That night, I found myself going back to the attic to read more of that journal. I felt drawn to it. The words pulled me in. There were vague mentions of sacrifices. I couldn't understand what my father found out or what he truly gave up. With every entry, dread settled deeper into my bones. One night, I stood by the window looking out over the fields. A chill swept through the room. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. It felt like something was watching me. The darkness outside seemed alive. I could only hear the whispering wind. What had my family really bought with that pact? It felt like standing at the edge of a terrible abyss. Maybe I was meant to fall in. I could see my breath in the cold air, and it made me even more scared. I took the journal and climbed back up to the attic. I was determined to find answers. I read the entries again. I felt more in tune with the shadows, like they were creeping closer to me. Then a loud thud echoed from the barn. My heart raced as I froze. I felt like I was not alone anymore. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the barn. The air grew heavier with each step. I pushed the door open and felt cold air rush past me. Buck was still there, but now he was whinnying loudly, stomping his hooves. I could hear something moving in the shadows behind him. As I stepped back, the whispers grew louder, swirling around me. I couldn't breathe. I turned and ran. Whatever my father agreed to was not finished with me. I had to uncover the truth, before whatever darkness took hold came looking for me. I barely slept that night. The whispers haunted me, echoing in my mind with every flicker of moonlight. I kept glancing at the barn from my bedroom window, waiting for shadows to slide out of the darkness. In the morning, the dread clung to me like a heavy blanket. I needed answers. I decided it was time to confront the neighbors. The few families still working the land had to know something. With shaky hands, I wrote down questions. While I barely remembered their faces, I knew their names: the Millers, the Johnsons. They'd seen my father at his worst. At least, that's what I hoped. As I drove down the dirt road, memories flooded back. I remembered running through the fields as a child, laughing and playing. Now those same fields felt full of secrets I wasn't ready to uncover. I parked outside the miller's place, a modest house with peeling paint. I hesitated at the door. I took a deep breath and knocked. The door creaked open slowly, revealing Mrs. Miller, her eyes widening as she laid them on me. "Hello," I said, forcing a smile. I know who you are." She cut me off, voice trembling. "What do you want?" I fumbled for words. "I need to know about my father, about the deal he made." Her face paled. You shouldn't be here, you don't understand. Please, I pressed. Anything you can share, it's important. Mrs. Miller looked around, as if expecting someone to appear from the shadows. You're in danger, she whispered. Leave this place. Whatever he did, it's caught up with you now. My pulse raced. Caught up with me? What are you talking about? Without another word, she shut the door, leaving me standing there, confused and angry. I wanted to shout for her to come back, but it felt pointless. I was right back at square one. Frustrated, I made my way to the Johnsons'. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows, making everything feel eerie. I knocked, tapping my foot. Mr. Johnson answered. His expression mirrored Mrs. Miller's. He looked over his shoulder before stepping outside, closing the door behind him. What do you need? He asked, cautious. I need to know about my father. Why is everyone acting like this? What happened 8 years ago? He hesitated, glancing nervously at the ground. Your father was desperate. He made a deal with something unnatural. His gaze darted to the barn. Things have been quiet for years, but now you're back. What does that mean? Before he could answer, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the yard. It swirled past us, carrying a low, chilling whisper. I felt a surge of panic. It felt like a warning. My heart thudded. What do I need to do? You have to make it right, he said, taking a step back. Before it's too late. Then he turned and walked back inside, leaving me in the fading light, filled with confusion and fear. I had to know more. I had to confront the truth of my father's past. I headed back to the ranch, a sense of dread creeping up my spine. Once inside the barn, I found Buck still trembling in his pen. Something in his fear mirrored my own. Then from the corner of my eye, I noticed a glimmer beneath a pile of hay. I knelt down, heart racing, uncovering what looked like an old rusted pendant, one that felt eerily familiar. And that's when I heard it, a deep, resonant voice calling my name. Only this time, it wasn't the wind. It was coming from behind me. I turned slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice hung in the air, thick with urgency. Come closer, it whispered again, each syllable wrapping around me like a chain. I couldn't focus. The barn felt larger, shadows stretching into the corners, consuming the remaining light. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling. I dropped the pendant, my hands suddenly clammy. I searched the dark corners but saw nothing. The old barn splintered with age and neglect, yet it felt alive, almost breathing. Help me, the voice pleaded, echoing in my mind. It's your turn. I stumbled backward, barely processing what I was hearing. I had chased so many questions, but this was different. This was a demand, a responsibility. What do you want from me? I shouted, my voice cracking. Silence answered. The voice faded to a whisper, its urgency replaced by a chilling void. I felt a sudden rush of wind, the kind that sends shivers down your spine. The barn creaked ominously as if something stirred deep within its walls. I remembered the pendant. I dropped to retrieve it, fingers trembling as I picked it up. The heavy metal felt warm in my hand. It was engraved with strange symbols, swirling designs that defied understanding. As I examined it, I recalled the stories my father used to tell about the land. I pushed those memories aside. They had always felt like myths, tales spun to entertain or frighten me. But now, they felt alive, creeping back into my mind, threatening to steal my breath. Suddenly, an intense chill washed over me. The shadows grew darker, more pronounced. I stood up quickly, clutching the pendant tightly. Just then, I felt it, a heavy presence looming in the air, something close and dangerous. I backed away, heart racing. The air thickened, each breath feeling labored. I don't want anything to do with this, I cried out, half hoping it would just vanish. But instead it grew louder. I could hear footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. They came closer, echoing like a heartbeat. The barn felt more cramped, like the walls were closing in. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I felt frozen in place. I turned again, determined to face whatever was coming. And there it was. A figure. Tall and shadowed, it stood a few feet away from me, features indistinguishable yet exuding an undeniable power. "Your father's debt is due," it said in that resonant voice, now chillingly familiar. "You must make the choice he couldn't." "What choice?" I demanded, blinking hard against the dark. "What did he do?" The figure stepped closer, the shadows melding with the barn's dim light. "You are the one who can end this curse," it said, its voice softening slightly. "But to make it right, you must unlock the truth." The words hit me hard, but all I felt was fear. What truth? And why me? Before I could compose myself, the lights flickered, plunging the barn into darkness. The sound of hooves clattering against the barn floor erupted, and Buck whinnied in fear. Panic raced through me as I stumbled backward again, searching for an exit in the pitch black. Then, just as suddenly, a light flickered back on, illuminating the barn and revealing an open doorway I hadn't noticed before. My heart raced. I had to know what lay beyond it. There was no choice but to step through. I gripped the pendant tighter and took a deep breath before moving forward, driven by a sense of impending doom. As I crossed the threshold, a crash echoed behind me, followed by a breathless silence. Whatever I was about to face, I couldn't turn back now. I had entered a new realm, and the truth was waiting. The air beyond the barn felt different, charged with an energy that buzzed against my skin. I stumbled onto uneven ground, my feet sinking into the damp earth. The faint glow from the barn faded behind me, leaving me encased in darkness punctuated only by faint stars overhead. I gulped, scanning my surroundings. The landscape was unfamiliar, stretching out before me as an expanse of shadows and tall grass that undulated like waves under a hidden breeze. I felt exposed, alone. Did I really step into another world? "Your father's debt." The figure's words echoed in my mind. My father. What could he have done? I squeezed the pendant again, hoping its warmth could anchor me. Questions tumbled around in my head, growing heavier with each thought spinning into existence. As I collected myself, I caught a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. I turned sharply, catching a glimpse of a shadow darting between the trees. It was fast, unnaturally so. My heart raced again, pounding in my ears. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking slightly. Nothing answered but the rustling leaves. Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping forward with an air of caution. The moonlight caught their face, and I recognized them. It was Clara, the daughter of the neighboring rancher. I had known her my entire life, but something about her looked different. Her eyes were wider, gleaming with a desperation I had never seen before. "Are you okay?" "What are you doing out here?" I asked, relief mixing with confusion. "I've been looking for you," she exclaimed, her voice urgent. "You shouldn't have come here, the barn. There's something wrong." "What do you mean?" I felt panic creep back in. I heard a voice. It spoke to me. Clara hesitated, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "The legend. You know what they say about the land? The curse?" I nodded slowly, my mind racing. I had heard the stories, but they had always seemed far-fetched. "That's just folklore, right?" "No," she insisted. "The debt your father took on years ago is real. It's tied to this land, the animals, the spirits. We're all connected." "What debt?" I pressed, feeling my breath quicken again. The weight of her words felt like something shifting beneath the ground. "If it's time for you to pay, you need to understand the truth. The pendant you found, it's the key." I gulped, heat of realization washing over me. Why me? What do I even have to do? Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed in the distance, followed by the low rumble of thunder. The wind whipped around us, carrying an unnatural chill. "We need to go," Clara shouted, grabbing my arm. I didn't have time to argue. We sprinted deeper into the grass and trees, away from the barn and its ominous presence. My heart raced, for reasons I couldn't fully comprehend, driven by a primal instinct to survive. As we moved off the path, a flash of light illuminated the sky, and I glanced back to see the barn engulfed in a storm of energy. Dark clouds swirled above it, a tangible force roaring like wild animals. "What's happening?" I gasped, terror tightening my throat. "I don't know," Clara shouted, pulling me onward, "but we have to find the others. We need to find out what we're up against." Just then, I heard it again, a whisper that sent chills down my spine, cutting through the chaos. "It's your turn." The urgency of the situation crashed in around me, and I felt it deep in my gut. We were running out of time. The trees loomed taller as we fled, their branches reaching like skeletal hands toward the sky. My limbs felt heavy, weighed down by fear and confusion. Clara's grip was firm, but it also felt like a lifeline. "What others?" I managed to ask between gasps. My chest burned and the air felt thick, almost suffocating. "The others affected by the curse. We can't be alone in this." She darted into a clearing, and I followed her. The moonlight illuminated a small gathering of stones, arranged in a circle. Clara stopped, scanning the surroundings. "Here," she said, urgency flickering in her eyes. "We need to summon them." Summon who? I was still trying to catch my breath, the pounding of my heart competing with the thundering storm that was raging behind us. The spirits, the guardians, they hold the answers. Clara crouched down, tracing her fingers over the stones, murmuring something under her breath. I could barely make out her words, but they sounded almost like a chant. "Is this really going to work?" I asked, doubt creeping in. What if it just makes things worse? "It's all we have," she shot back, frustration bleeding into her voice. "We need to try before—" Before what? I didn't even want to think about it. The whisper from the barn echoed in my mind again, more haunting this time. "It's your turn." The ground trembled suddenly beneath us, and I stumbled backward, landing hard on the grass. Clara's voice snapped me back. "Focus, please." As she continued her chant, I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. It wasn't just fear. It was something else, something pressing, like the air before a storm. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement. Shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing, dark shapes that danced just beyond my sight. "Clara," I whispered, but the words barely escaped my lips. She was engrossed in her incantation, and I could feel the shift in the air intensifying. Then the shadows coalesced into forms. 3 figures stepped into the pale moonlight. They were ethereal, like mirages shaped from smoke, their features obscured but somehow familiar. I squinted, trying to discern their faces. "Who are you?" I called out, fear lacing my voice. One of them lifted a hand, gesturing to the pendant around my neck. "She carries the key," the figure said, their voice echoing as if coming from a great distance. "What do you mean? What key?" I pressed, my pulse racing. "There is a choice," another figure responded, gliding closer. "A balance must be struck." The ground continued to tremble, and Clara finally stopped her chant, staring wide-eyed at the apparition before us. "What do we have to do?" "Only she can decide," the third figure said, looking directly at me. "The debt is hers to inherit." Before I could comprehend the weight of their words, the sky erupted in light, a blinding flash that sent us both stumbling back. The world seemed to warp. Then everything went dark. I felt the cold ground beneath my fingers, alive, pulsing. In that moment of chaos, a single thought coursed through my mind. I was now entwined in this darkness, and I had no idea how to break free. I awoke to the sound of rustling leaves, the air cool against my skin. My heart raced as I blinked into the dim light. I wasn't back in the clearing. I struggled to sit up, confusion flooding my mind. Clara was next to me, her face pale and drawn, her eyes darting around as if searching for something in the shadows. "Clara," I said, half in relief, half in panic. "Where are we?" "I don't know," she replied, shaking her head, her voice a shaky whisper. "It feels different. The energy, it's thick here." I looked around, trying to make sense of our surroundings. We were in a dense forest, but it wasn't the same one we had just escaped. The trees stood closer together, their bark twisted and dark, with gnarled branches that tangled like fingers reaching for us. A gnawing sensation twisted in my stomach. The darkness felt alive and watching. "Do you think the spirits brought us here?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Maybe," Clara murmured, biting her lip. "But why?" Before I could respond, I noticed a faint light glowing through the trees. I felt drawn to it despite the ominous feeling hanging in the air. "Look," I gestured, "over there." Clara hesitated, but followed as I got to my feet, moving cautiously toward the light. Each step felt heavy, the ground squelching beneath my feet as if it were trying to pull me back. The forest was eerily silent now, and the glow grew brighter, casting strange shadows as we approached. When we reached the source, I gasped. Before us lay an ancient stone altar, shrouded in vines and illuminated by an otherworldly glow. Atop it sat a small wooden box, intricately carved with symbols I recognized from the chant Clara had recited. "What is this?" Clara asked, her voice low. "It looks like something from the stories," I replied, stepping closer to examine the box. "The tales my grandma used to tell." "What stories?" Clara asked, curiosity replacing some of her fear. I swallowed hard, recalling her warnings. "About dark pacts made long ago. They say sacrifices were involved." A chill ran down my spine. As I reached out to touch the box, Clara pulled back. "Wait, what if it's a trap?" "I need to know," I replied, the desire for answers outweighing my fear. I opened the box, and a cold fog spilled out, swirling around us. It smelled of damp earth and something sweeter, almost intoxicating. Inside, a crystal pendant rested, shimmering with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It looked like the one I had worn earlier, but different, older, and more powerful. Just as I realized what it was, a shadow moved at the corner of my vision. Panic surged through me. "Clara, we need to go." But it was too late. The thick fog coiled tighter around us and whispers filled the air. Incoherent at first, but growing louder. A chant echoing the very words Clara had spoken. "Stay close," I shouted, grabbing her hand. My heart raced anew as I felt the presence pressing in on us, hungry and demanding. "Where do we go?" she cried, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Then, from the depths of the darkness, something emerged, a figure cloaked in mist, its face obscured. "You have awakened the Pact," it said with a voice that resonated, deep and endless. "Now you must choose." The ground began to tremble beneath us again, keys to unknown doors presenting themselves in every direction. It was clear then that our choices would forge our fate, and we had no idea how to decide. I stood frozen, the figure looming ever closer. Clara squeezed my hand, her breath quickening as the air thickened around us. The voice reverberated again, echoing through the trees. "Choose wisely, for the Pact demands a price." "Price?" I stammered, my eyes darting between the figure and the glowing pendant. "What do you mean?" The mist swirled, billowing around us like an angry storm. "Life for life, memory for memory. You must decide who shall pay." I felt a knot form in my stomach. Who would I even consider sacrificing? The weight of the choice crushed down on me. "What do we do?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know. My mind raced as I struggled to think clearly. Maybe there's another way. Then, out of the darkness, a low growl echoed through the trees, a chilling reminder we weren't alone. Something snapped in the underbrush nearby. My heart pounded and I stepped back instinctively. The figure raised an arm, pointing to the paths that stretched before us. Navigate the forest, or the darkness will claim you. Choose a direction. What happens if we can't decide? I asked. The price will be higher. The figure's tone was calm, yet a chill ran down my spine. I turned to Clara, panic blooming in her eyes. We can't stay here, we have to move. But then another sound reached us, a haunting cry cutting through the silent forest. It felt like a call of warning and desperation intertwined. Clara and I locked eyes, our unspoken understanding clear. We didn't want to be parted by whatever force was at play. We can't run without knowing where to go, I said, looking between the paths before us. The mist shifted again, the shadows more pronounced along one route that seemed less inviting. But another path, darker and twisting, pulsated with a wicked energy, drawing me in as if it knew my fears. Let's try the left, I decided. It seemed to be less tangled with darkness, offering a glimmer of hope. Clara nodded, though uncertainty shadowed her expression. As we stepped forward, a surge of energy crackled in the air. Something ancient pushed back against our decision. I could feel the forest responding to our movement, the trees almost shifting in their ranks. The growling grew closer still, its low rumble vibrated beneath my feet. We have to hurry, I urged Clara, glancing back at the figure that remained unmoving. Then everything went dark. The world fell silent around me, a void swallowing the sounds of the forest. I squeezed Clara's hand tightly, the fear of losing her filling me with a fierce determination. Stay close, I shouted, even as the shadows crept in on us threateningly. Suddenly, the darkness fractured, revealing a path illuminated by an eerie glow. A pathway that arched toward the ancient altar, a sinister pull urging us to return. I remembered the box, the pendant, and the choice still lingering like a storm cloud over us. That's when I saw it, the pendant strikingly brighter, almost calling out to me. Was it the key to our safety, or would it lead us deeper into the darkness? I had to decide. The light from the pendant danced in my vision, wavering like a heartbeat. What if we... I started to say, but I wasn't sure what I meant. The moment pulled tight around me, stretching my thoughts thin like spider silk. Clara tugged at my hand, urgency flooding her voice. We have to go, now. It snapped me from my daze. I turned, clutching the pendant. The figure still loomed behind us, its presence a heavy weight in the air. We chose the pathway to the left. The forest closed in around us as we ran, branches scraping against our arms and legs. The growling followed close behind, a reminder that whatever was out there wanted us. Do you think it's still following us? Clara gasped, glancing over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I could feel the shadows pulsing with life, the energy growing more oppressive as we moved deeper into the trees. The path twisted and contorted, making it hard to keep track of where we were heading. But then we stumbled upon a clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood a stone altar, ancient and worn. The same pendant I clutched hung above it, suspended in midair, shimmering with light. Were these things connected? Doubt flooded my mind, but there were no other options. We had to determine our next move. Look at that, Clara pointed, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. It's beautiful. It was beautiful, yet eerie. The altar looked almost alive, as though it were breathing with the very pulse of the forest around us. I stepped closer, the air crackling with energy. Suddenly the pendant I held flared, its light bursting outward and illuminating the clearing. Step away from it, Clara urged, but it was too late. The moment I reached toward the suspended pendant, a jolt of energy surged through me. I felt memories flood my mind, fragments of a life I hadn't lived yet. Vivid images danced like ghosts in my thoughts. "What's happening?" I yelled, my voice laced with panic. The forest responded, the growling intensifying, twisting into a tumultuous roar. "Choose!" The echoing voice of the figure rang out again. "Or lose everything." Before I could comprehend what was at stake, shadows whisked around me. I stumbled back, feeling disoriented as Clara's hand slipped from mine. "Clara!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. She had been pulled into the shadows, swallowed by the very darkness we had fled. "Let her go," I demanded, desperation clawing at my throat. But the shadows thickened, pulling me closer to the altar. It felt like a trap, one I had stumbled into unwittingly. I had to choose. Could I sacrifice the memories I saw? Those lives that felt familiar but weren't my own? Or could I risk everything to save Clara, even if it meant embracing this darkness? A sudden chill sliced through the air, and in that moment I realized the price was more than I had anticipated. The truth lay just out of reach, a strange flicker of fate waiting to be unveiled. I took a breath, grasping the pendant again tightly. Whatever choice I made next, it would echo long after I left the altar, and I feared the cost. The shadows tugged harder, pressing against my skin like cold fingers. My heart pounded, and my breath quickened. I had to decide. "Clara!" I yelled again, my voice trembling. The darkness swirled around me, alive and hungry. I could barely see the altar now, just a flicker of light against a backdrop of chaos. I hesitated, torn between my instinct to rescue her and the otherworldly compulsion that beckoned me closer to the pendant. Suddenly I felt a rush of warmth surge through me, different from the cold shadows. A whisper brushed against my ear, soft yet commanding. "Embrace me, and the path will be clear." It was the figure's voice, echoing in the thick air. I froze. What choice did I have? If I didn't act now, Clara might be lost forever. I gripped the pendant tighter, my knuckles white. "All right," I spoke, voice shaky yet resolute. "I'll do it." As my words left my lips, the energy from the altar pulsed like a heartbeat. The shadows retreated slightly, revealing Clara's silhouette, suspended just at the edge of the altar's reach. Relief surged through me, but it was short-lived. I could see her face, twisted in fear. "Don't do it, please," Clara cried out, desperation etched in her features. "You don't know what you're giving up." The whispers around me surged again, urging me. Memories flashed before my eyes, an endless landscape of golden fields, vast skies, and a ranch that had once thrived. But with each passing moment, the images felt more like a trap than a gift. I could feel the weight of a hidden truth hovering just out of sight, something I couldn't grab hold of. Then everything went dark. One moment I was standing in the clearing, the next I was inside the ranch barn, a place I had never visited but somehow felt familiar. I stumbled, dizzy, the shadows still clinging to the edges of my vision. "Welcome home," a voice greeted me from the shadows. It was a man, with sharp features and eyes that gleamed with an unsettling mix of knowledge and danger. "You're just in time for the harvest. Who are you? What is this?" I stammered, confusion battling my instinct to flee. He stepped closer, a smug grin spreading across his face. "All you need to do is embrace your destiny." His tone chilled me. All those memories, they weren't just visions, they were your past. "Wait, I don't want this. I need to save Clara." Suddenly, I heard Clara's voice again, faint but desperate, pulled from deep within the shadows. "Please, don't forget me." The edge of panic clawed at my chest. I could choose the familiarity of this strange ranch, a life that might have been. But Clara, she was still out there, and I was about to lose her forever. In that moment I realized I had to break free, not just from the darkness, but from my own fear. The choice was no longer just about the pendant. I had to defy the shadows. I had to rescue Clara. "Let us go!" I shouted into the swirling dark. But then I felt a shift in the air, something worse lurking just behind me. The man laughed softly. "You think you can escape? The pact is already sealed." The shadows lunged forward, closing in on me with an appetite for despair. I braced for impact. That's when I saw it, Clara's figure struggling against the darkness, her eyes wide and pleading. I had to act. What I found in that moment could change everything. I lunged toward the shadows, fueled by instinct and determination. "Clara." My voice cut through the dark like a flare in the night. Whatever hold the darkness had on us, I refused to let it win. With every ounce of strength, I focused on the pendant. Its warmth pulsed in my palm like a beacon. "I'll free you!" I shouted, gripping it tighter. Time seemed to bend, and I felt a charge of energy enveloping us. "Leave her be!" I cried out to the figure that watched with mockery etched on his face. "Your darkness has no power over us." He took a step forward, his expression shifting to something darker, more menacing. "You think your bravery can shatter what binds you? The pact demands sacrifice, and that burden won't vanish on mere words." The shadows lunged at me, skimming past like a freezing wind. I remembered the stories, tales spun by my grandmother about the land and the spirits that once roamed free. "I will not be a pawn," I roared, unleashing whatever remnants of courage I had. I focused on Clara, on her frightened pleas. The darkness thickened around her, but I could see her, strengthening my resolve. "Clara, hold on!" I shouted, channeling all my fears into that one purpose. I extended the pendant toward her, letting its light pierce through the overwhelming black. The shadows recoiled as if burned, letting out a low growl that reverberated through the air. She looked back at me, darkness skimming the edges of her form, tears pooling in her eyes. "You have to make a choice, don't forget." Her reminder hit me like an electric shock. The key to breaking this cycle was not just bravery, it was love and remembering who we were. The darkness thrummed around us, demanding a price for freedom, but this time I had something tangible against it. Our connection. "Together!" I yelled, hoping to grab hold of whatever tether still connected us. I began to chant the words Clara had spoken in the circle, calling forth our memories. "We are not bound by your debt. We choose each other over fear and sacrifice." With every repetition, the shadows began to recede, a spectral wave unraveling against the strength of our connection. The moment felt monumental, a dance of light and dark teetering on the edge. In that sacred space, I closed my eyes, recalling all the moments that had shaped us. The laughter we shared, the dreams we had of freedom, a life woven in joy and camaraderie. The pendant flared as those memories intertwined with the energy throbbing around us, illuminating Clara and pushing against the dark figure's oppressive laughter. Then something within me shifted. I wasn't running away anymore. I was confronting the essence of this pact. "We were never meant to abide by your rules." I spit defiantly. "Our lives are our own." The figure faltered as if struck. "You are a fool for believing in what cannot be seen." But I stood my ground, my heart pounding with a rhythmic certainty. Perhaps, but I choose to forge my own path. Suddenly the atmosphere cracked. Light erupted around us, blinding and pure. With a final surge, I reached forward, wrapping Clara's hand in mine. Together we stood against the oppressive darkness that had once consumed us. And then I felt it. Our power surged in a wave, lifting us, casting the shadows away. In that moment, Clara and I became a force indescribable, unyielding. The shadows screeched, twisting and swirling as they faded into the night. The figure morphed, becoming small and insignificant, as it was swept away by the brilliance we summoned. And then it was over. With the force of our memories, bonds forged in love and sacrifice, the darkness collapsed around us, revealing a canvas of stars above. I stood gasping, clutching Clara's hand as we found ourselves back in the clearing where we had first summoned the Guardians. Did we win? She asked, breathless. But even now, uncertainty lingered in the air. The pendant still pulsed softly, its warm glow transforming into a gentle reminder. The curse might be lifeless, but lingering threads of the past reminded us that shadows could always come creeping back. I think so, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. We looked toward the old barn that still stood in the distance, the storm clouds receding into memory. It all felt distant now, but as I took a deep breath, the weight of our journey hung heavy within the silent whispers of the night. I still think about it sometimes, I finally admitted. What really happened? Was that part of our reality or just a darkness that we both faced? Clara nodded, staring at the now peaceful ranch. There will always be questions, she said softly, and I realized, as we left that clearing behind for the last time, that some mysteries might never reveal their answers. What mattered now was that we fight for our story, the one with laughter and life, even amidst the shadows in the world around us. I moved to a different city after that, seeking distance, but sometimes I wonder if we truly escaped the darkness. Was it just waiting for the right moment? Or had we truly severed our ties to the past? I guess I'll never know.